I'm here with Luis Pereira, the founder of AudioPen, and I'm really excited to talk to you today, Luis, about your journey building AudioPen with no code and the future of AI. And I'm sure we'll get into a lot of different topics, but thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Yep, thanks, Seth. Happy to be here.
So maybe for people who aren't aware of what AudioPen is, you could just give a quick summary of what it is, what no-code tools you use to build it, and what the experience is for users.
Cool. So AudioPen is a web app, and it's quite a simple app on the surface. It uses AI in the background, and it's built on Bubble. And what the app does is it lets you speak and ramble, a thought or any sort of on any topic, whether it's a journal entry, an essay that you want to write, whether it's a thesis that you want to write for your PhD, or a legal sort of draft that you want to create if you're a lawyer. All you have to do is just talk in your normal language, and then tell AudioPen how you want it to be rewritten, and AudioPen does that for you. So instead of having to go from thoughts in your head to typing on a keyboard to get a first draft in a style of your choice, you can just talk, and AudioPen will take that content, reframe it, reformat it, rewrite it, and give you a draft that's ready to either maybe tweak a little bit and then share, or in some cases even just share directly.
And what's the main type of user that's using AudioPen? Is it people like using it in their business? Are they just using it as their personal to-do list? Or are there a variety of different kind of personas of people who are using it?
Yeah, I think this has been one of the challenging things for me, to sort of drill down on a particular user profile, just because people have used it for all sorts of things, things that I didn't even expect. So there are, for instance, lawyers are a very, very large set of the paying user base, and they use it for stuff like, I don't know, creating drafts of things, especially because they can tell AudioPen to write in a legal style, and it'll just do that for them very quickly. I have a lot of content creators that create blogs using AudioPen as well. I have a bunch of people that want to create content in a language that is not their first language. So for instance, if you're not a native English speaker, but you can speak another language, you can get AudioPen to convert what you said into English and write it in a style of your choice. So there are folks using it for that as well. There are people using it just to send emails, for like customer support. Like that's one of the reasons I use it as well. I just talk to my computer, and it creates a draft written in a style that I've told it to write in. And you can use it for that. There are people using it for their PhD thesis, where you can give AudioPen a sample of your writing and ask it to mimic that style in all future writings, and then talk to it, and it'll do that. So yeah, I mean, it's a whole range, and it's been difficult for me to sort of find one user profile and sort of try and tune the product for that user. But so far, I've just been sort of open-minded and let whoever wants to use it in however way do that, and I guess it's working.
Yeah, it's an interesting challenge where you have this product which can be used for a lot of different things, and it's kind of general purpose in its branding, or just AudioPen. It's not, lawyer thoughts or something like that. Which I guess there's pros and cons to both, of kind of niching down with the name and branding versus keeping it open. I really like what you did with keeping it open and just having it as kind of the authoritative app for this. And then there's always ways that you can brand and market towards those different personas in the future, by keeping it open-ended. Do you market to those types of personas right now, or how do you get customers? Is it all through Twitter, organic, word of mouth, or is there anything else that you're doing to get customers right now?
Yeah, my first cohort of customers came through Twitter, and I think I sort of relied on that as a growth channel for a few months. But I would tweet about it, and people would try the product, and some percentage of those users would convert. After that, I flirted with a couple of other channels for growth. One was like a TikTok agency that I paid a lot of money to but it just didn't work. It was
Mm.
probably my most expensive marketing fail to date. Quite embarrassed about the amount of money I paid them, but I mean, I had to try it. Um, I think another thing that works very well for me is an affiliate program that I have. So I run that through, like, directly from the site itself. Anyone can sign up to be an affiliate, and you can earn 25% of any premium customer you drive. That seems to be working quite well. And I think in general, word of mouth is is the current largest channel for new visitors on the site. Mainly because I see a lot of direct traffic, and I have a fairly generous free plan as well. So I mean, even free users are incentivized to talk about the product. So that gives me a much larger base of
Mm.
initial users that can sort of tell their friends to use it for whatever reason they find it useful as well. I do want to experiment with other forms. Like I've done a few sort of newsletter marketing things where I've paid someone to put an ad in their newsletter. Hasn't really worked very well in terms of being profitable on that spend. Maybe my copy was
Yeah.
wrong. Maybe the audience was wrong. I don't know, because I don't have a very fixed target
Mm.
audience. But yeah, word of mouth has probably been the best. And I was fortunate to have a couple of shout outs, organic shout outs from large creators that use the product themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes they included it in their newsletter. Like for instance, if you've heard of Recommendo, the newsletter, um, they had it. I think there was another newsletter called Dense Discovery that also had it.
Yeah.
Lens Bites had it for a bit. So just those blurbs help create that initial sort of free user base, and then from there, a little bit of word of mouth helps.
Do you have SEO, like ranking for, like, audio, speech to text AI app or something like that, or
No,
not right now?
not right now. I'm actually trying to change my uh, I'm trying to change my like mental outlook towards SEO. I have a very like negative outlook towards it. Like I don't like the idea of trying to game um, a search engine for certain keywords and to create content with keywords so that it ranks higher. Like I just find myself morally opposed to that. Although I've just recently started to see the other side of that argument, where you are basically helping people that are looking for things to find the right thing. Um,
Sure. Yeah.
so maybe I'll work on that in the future. But like up until now, I mean, that's been my outlook, to my own detriment, I guess.
Right, right. Well, I think that, we can all each only focus on so many marketing channels, and if there's other ones that you're more excited about or more passionate about, then I think it's totally reasonable to not focus on SEO and focus on other ones instead. Um,
Yeah.
for the TikTok experiment, can you share what, not necessarily how much you spent, but what was that agency doing for you, and why you think it didn't work? Because just thinking about your product, I see why you wanted to hire them, because it does seem like a product that would lend itself well to TikTok. You have a good free tier. You have kind of a good product for it. So I'm curious what you think
Yeah.
didn't work about it.
Um, I'm not too sure because I live in India, and TikTok here is banned, so I can't really get on TikTok, and I'm not on the edge of what's cool on TikTok, or like what sells on TikTok. So it wasn't very. I'm not able to kind of say where they missed the mark. But if I were
I
to
see.
guess based on what I saw, I think one was just user targeting. I think they were targeting a much younger audience than I wanted. So while it might have had some free sort of visitors, barely any of them converted, because I did not see any
Right.
uptick in paid users based on the dates that I saw an uptick in TikTok views, that did not
Yeah.
correspond with an increase in paid signups. So that could be one. Two is, I think the agency was just bad. Like the quality of videos was pretty terrible.
Yeah.
But I had to give it a try, and I burnt my fingers. I don't know if I'll do it again with another agency, just purely because of like the price point. It was like 3,000 something dollars a month, which was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I did it for 3 months and learned my lesson. And I don't know. I'm going to try other channels before I go back to that, maybe in the future.
Yeah, no, totally, and makes sense. And I bet you could also experiment with like hiring a freelancer off Upwork to make videos for you and do it in a lower cost way than than
Yep.
than hiring an agency. And because it yeah,
Yeah.
I bet if you had the right video, not that that's an easy task to do, but but they're still, it does seem like a good channel. Um,
Yeah.
so how many users does AudioPen now have, and I guess any other traction that you can share that you're having right now with the business?
I mean, I haven't checked like the latest numbers, but I think around 50,000 registered users. That's the last. I think
Wow,
yeah, in that ballpark somewhere. With about about 2 or 3 thousand daily active users at this point. Um, yeah, I mean, and about 4,000 something paying users as of now, and growing slowly, but growing quite steadily as well.
that's amazing. I mean, 50,000 signups is a pretty huge number. And so I guess for anyone listening, it sounds like the things that were, uh, was there anything in particular that led to like the majority, like 80% of the signups came from 20% of the things, or is it kind of just a combination of all of the different channels that you mentioned?
Yeah, I think it was a combination. I also think I got quite lucky at the start. Like I've mentioned this before, like I don't have a strategy to sort of go from zero to whatever 50,000 in this case. But like, I launched on Twitter. I got maybe a few hundred signups for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, and some nice feedback. But not that many paying customers, maybe about 100. Um, and then it popped off when one large Twitter account sort of found it useful, wrote a Twitter thread dedicated to it about how he was using it for academic writing or something. And he had like a large audience, I think north of 100,000. And then that sort of started a flywheel of other people finding it, other people signing up for it, other people telling other people about it. And because of that one shout out, it sort of led to this domino effect of other people that have large audiences finding it eventually, and also talking about it. So yeah, I have definitely been fortunate. It's not that if I start a new product tomorrow, I know how to go from zero to 50,000. I still need to rely on luck to a large extent. But I think the beauty of the journey and just building with no code as well is that you can take so many shots at goal that eventually you will get lucky. Like it's just a matter of time if you just keep shooting. Because it's so cheap and it's so fast to make a new product and sort of get it out there, and see if it resonates, and then wait for luck to knock at your door. But yeah, that's my strategy. Just keep shipping. If-
Was AudioPen the first bubble app that you built and tried to ship out to people, or were there other products before that
oh no, I've built
you
a
tried
bunch.
and didn't?
Oof,
Yeah.
this must be like my 15th, 10th, 15th app. I don't know. I've built a lot. Of all the ones that I've built, I've had one app that's seen like moderate traction before this. It's called Read Something Great. ReadSomethingGreat.com is just like a website that helps you find curated articles that are timeless on the internet. Um, but that site didn't really have a monetization strategy. But I mean, it still gets a decent amount of traffic every month, a few thousand
Yeah.
people. But yeah, I mean, nothing like AudioPen. And like between Read Something Great and AudioPen, I also built like 6 or 7 things. Um, most of like all of which are dead, if except maybe one or two. So like I don't have a magic wand that I can predict what will work and what won't work, and I know how to launch and scale or whatever. Like my strategy is just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks, and then double down on that.
Right, right. I think that's a great strategy because not, uh, you're not going to necessarily know right away which is the product that is going to really resonate with people. And I think that it's a balance of like making sure that what you ship is a good enough quality, which I think you've definitely done with the products you put out. Even the first version of AudioPen, I think, was still a level of quality where it's still providing value to people. So I think that can be a trap sometimes, and people launch and it's just not. It probably isn't ready, and that's the reason why it doesn't work. So it's I always find that as a challenge for myself as I'm thinking about new products. But yeah, I totally agree in terms of launching and getting it into market is really the only way that you'll know if people actually want what you're building.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I get DMs from people all the time asking me for, like, what's the strategy? What do I do? Should I launch? Should I not launch? And everyone's, myself included, right? Like everyone's scared of spending time building something and then like hearing crickets, and then having to kind of go back and figure things out again
Right.
and pretend like it was a success or whatever. Like been there, done that. But I think you have to get over that at some point. Like you have to be able to just laugh at yourself online if you failed. Like it's fine, I failed. Like just try again. And that's something I've learned as well. Like I think, like the whole build in public thing, it's great for the early days, but also people don't realize that the reason why it works, um, is not just because other people want to sort of follow your journey because they think you're a good person or whatever. um, it's entertaining to people to watch you take a risk in public, um,
Right.
and they respect that. Like they respect the fact that you're taking a risk that's not guaranteed. I mean, by definition it's not guaranteed to work. And they enjoy, like they get entertained to kind of see you try and sometimes fail. And even a failure for that, while it might look like a failure to you, if you're doing it in public or on Twitter or wherever it is, you've probably created fans during that failure, that'll then be there for your eventual success. Like yes, they won't be like charitable towards you and give you money because if they don't want to, but if you find a product that has remote product market fit or strike some sort of a nerve, or a chord rather with these people, they will back it and then they will talk about it because they'll be like, hey, I saw this guy when he was shipping stuff that just didn't work. Like he embarrassed himself, but he tried. And now he shipped something that I like, and hey, I'm going to buy it and I'm going to tell other people about it as well, because I follow this journey and I know it's not like a he's not a one hit wonder. He's not like a fly by night sort of guy. And yeah, I think I did that for long enough, like 2.5 years before AudioPen, which led to like a relatively successful launch, I'd say, with people supporting it online, all the way through to the product hunt launch as well.
I totally agree about building in public, and I think you described it really well of how there was value in just building a fans of you and having people follow you, and even if your first product doesn't work, then your next one is going to have a higher chance of working. Do you still build in public or think about it the same way now that you have a product that is successful, or do you think about it differently or post differently now that you are in the position that you're in now?
So as the product's grown, I've sort of come to see some of the downsides of the whole build in public thing. One is it becomes almost like a treadmill where you're just constantly putting out stuff, and you almost care more about the validation of what you're building from people, and you want people to say cheer you on, like your stuff, comment on stuff. And I don't know, like off late I've been running an experiment where I just post less, on Twitter about what I'm building, partially, to see, hey, do I want to build this without all of this public fanfare? um, that's one of the downsides. Another downside is, of course, copycats. Like I've had a countless number of AudioPen copies turn up. um, of course, like stealing the concept is not a bad idea, like may the best man win. uh, but sometimes it's quite blatant where like more than just
Right.
like an idea is copied. It's like you can see design cues taken from it. You can see like
Right.
just like any new feature announced will like turn up everywhere else in like a couple of days or a few days, and that gets kind of, I don't think it impacts the product's growth that much, but it gets frustrating as a builder to see that happen. Like it's just this natural human tendency of like, man, what the hell?
Yeah.
Like I spent like hours trying to design this and get it right, and like within a day this guy's seen it and he's just basically blatantly copy pasted it. So that
Right.
gets frustrating. I don't think customers care. I think you'd still win, um, but it's like a morale sort of downer. So that's another reason why, as you find PMF, I feel like it might make sense to dial down the amount of stuff you share, at least on a
Right.
public platform like Twitter, or at least dial down some of your thought process behind why you're doing what you're doing. Dial down maybe product directions of where you want to go with the product. Yeah, I mean, I see the downsides of it. I still do want to build in public because I feel like I owe that community a lot, because they helped me get started. And the way I look at
Hmm.
it now is the folks that sort of supported me on this journey at least are most likely on the email list that I have for AudioPen. And I
Yeah.
share an update with them every couple of weeks, sometimes every week, sometimes a little more than a couple of weeks, about what I'm building and why I've built it, etc., etc. So it's maybe a slightly more closed circle, rather than random people on the internet. But I mean, that's my current sort of outlook on this stuff.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree. The benefits of sharing revenue all the time and like your users and everything about the company kind of uh, decreases as the company grows. And I did this as well with No Code MBA. Like in the beginning, I was sharing, oh, I got my first $1,000 of revenue, my first $10,000 of revenue, and then you don't really want to keep doing it necessarily.
Yeah,
But I think there's other ways to provide value without sharing like the revenue numbers or
yeah.
you know
I
other
think revenue
specific
also
things.
ends up being quite. I it could get a little
Well,
discouraging for people. Like I remember my days where I'd see everyone sharing MRRs and I'd be just like, what the hell? Like this guy's got 15K, 20K, and like I'm at like zero. So as someone who's building, it
right.
can get a little discouraging, I guess. I don't know if I felt very discouraged, but I can see it being like
I,
that, and you don't want to appear as like this pompous sort of person saying, "Hey, I
I,
made so much money."
yes. Although I think if you are willing to share your revenue numbers and uh, some people do and they have big revenue numbers, I think that it's almost like a cheat code to becoming almost like famous on Twitter, right? Because people are going to they are going to be more likely to
Yeah,
follow that person and probably listen to them if they're posting screenshots of their Stripe
yeah.
account. Um, the
I
other
guess,
thing
yeah,
the the other thing is like revenue doesn't equal profit. And I mean, I can even say for like no code MBA now, if I shared my revenue and not didn't share my expenses, it's not the full picture at all because I'm spending a lot on different areas of the business, and a lot of people are doing that. I mean, if it's truly a solo business and it's just one person, then that's not really the case. But most businesses start to have more
yeah,
expenses as they grow, so it's not even kind of a fully accurate kind of understanding of what's happening. Yeah.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
If you want to build your own AI applications without writing any code, check out No Code MBA's Building Apps with AI course, where you'll learn how to build your own text and image generation apps using no code tools like Bubble and AI APIs like Stable Diffusion, OpenAI, and more. Use the code podcast10 to get 10% off your No Code MBA membership. Now let's go ahead and get back into the episode.
Yeah, I'm still sort of confused about the whole build in public as your company grows. um yeah, I don't have an answer to that. I want to do it, but I also it's also been frustrating of late. Like I've seen a couple of these much larger creators that have built massive things, kind of go from building in public very prolifically to just going
Yeah,
full private. And I can see why they did it as well. Like it gets addictive to do it in public, and it also gets frustrating at the same time. And that's not a very
yeah,
good combination, especially as your
right.
thing is growing and you're trying to cover all bases and make sure nothing's breaking all the time, and you don't want an added
Yeah,
source of frustration.
yeah, totally. Switching gears a little bit to the building. So, one thing I really love about your product is how well designed it is. Is that something that you've had background in design or experience, or is there anything that you've done specifically to learn how to be a good designer? Because I think that's something that really sets AudioPen and your products apart, especially in the no code space, where I think there are a lot of products out there that someone might be a great builder, but being a great designer is a whole different skill set.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not a trained designer, but I mean, I like looking at nice digital designs. So like I always like I like spending time on Pinterest, just looking at how people design apps. So I kind of take inspiration from there. Usually, when I design a new app, I sort of scroll through Pinterest, see what sort of color palette, what sort of fonts fit my vibe for that product. Um, and then take ideas from there. Sometimes take it into Figma and just play around for as long as and, like, there's basically a lot of trial and error. I don't like any trained designer will look at any app that I've built in and be able to point out like 100 flaws in, line spacing, line height, font weights, and whatever else. But like for the average person, it might look nice.
Right.
Because I mean, it's like the whole 80/20 of design. Like I try and fail a bunch, and usually something then just clicks. Like it'll just feel right, either directly in the bubble editor, or sometimes in Figma. And when that happens, then I just sort of take that direction and then go with it. But yeah, I don't
Is
I
there
don't have a design background.
is there anything that you've done to teach yourself design, or is it just trial and error and kind of training your own design eye to kind of notice what looks good to you?
I think the only like formal thing I've done, or like the only intentional thing I've done, is I watched a video once, a very long time ago, on fonts, um, and I really liked that. Like I liked the video. I don't know, like this must have been like 7 or 8 years ago, where I just fell in love with the fact that fonts are so cool, and they're like this. Typefaces is this whole world. How you combine them, that kind of stuff. I'm no expert at all, but like I remember that being my first sort of taste into, hey, this world is a lot more complex than I thought it was. It seems so simple on the outside, to a random person, but the folks on the inside are doing all of this stuff very intentionally. I think that's the only, as far as I can remember, at least, that's the only time I did this. I watched this video series or whatever it was, on fonts. But other than that, no, it's just like a lot of exploring Pinterest to see what looks nice. Sometimes maybe intentionally or unintentionally observing nice designs in other apps or in
Yeah.
other websites, um, and then just a lot of trial and error, just until something feels good.
Yeah, I think the trial and error is really important in building taste of like what looks good and what feels good, and then UI UX. A lot of that is also, I feel, just like empathy with the user and putting yourself in their position of how to kind of
Yeah,
lay things out
I mean,
and
it
make
also
it yeah.
definitely helps. It helps if you can be your own user as well. Like if you are your own target
Yes.
user, eventually, like ideas will come to you, especially in the UX side of things. Like ideas will come to you without you even looking for them. Like you'll just
Right.
suddenly have an idea of like, hey, this should happen this way, or like this button should be here, or like I don't know, like this is a flow I should build for this particular type of task. And they'll just come to you, like as you're using your product, you'll just suddenly sort of think about it, or when you're just not thinking about the product, sometimes the idea just comes to you. And I try to lean into that quite a bit. And I see that I feel like it happens a lot more to me when I'm obsessed with what I'm doing. Like if I'm building AudioPen, like I was on holiday last month, and I wasn't spending 24 hours a day or whatever, all of my waking hours thinking about AudioPen. I was doing other stuff, and none of this subconscious stuff happened to me, of like thinking of a new idea to do with the UX. Like even if I looked at AudioPen and I was like, okay, I'm going to spend 2 hours working today, those 2 hours were pretty bad, in terms of new ideas. It was just you know, customer support kind of stuff. um, the creative juices don't flow. They only flow when
Mm.
you're 100% obsessed and absorbed, with a problem or a product or whatever it may be. And now that I've been back for just 2 weeks, I've already had like 3 or 4 of these random epiphanies, where I'm like, oh, this is how I should do this. And then I set about trying to figure out how to do it. So I don't think there's like a very like this is also like, for I don't know if this is relevant to people that are doing the no code MBA, but I feel like this is one of the biggest advantages I have as a solo builder, especially in the no code space as well, because that leans itself very well, to the whole um, indie solo builder sort of space, where I'm able to hold all these different aspects of the product in a single brain. Whether it's the database structure, whether it's the way, what sort of workflows are running, what sort of design is in the front end, or whatever it may be. I understand the product in its entirety, because I don't need to be a project manager or product manager, where there's one guy coding, one guy designing, one guy talking to customers. Like it's all in one brain, and because of that, I am able to have these random, things where everything just suddenly comes together and it feels like a puzzle sort of clicked into place. Whereas if you're in a team, maybe building a much more complex product that requires a large number of people to do it, these things become a lot harder to do, because how do you coordinate a team's collective brain, and
Yeah.
try and find serendipitous moments? It's much harder. So like, respect to teams that manage to pull it off, but like as individual builders, especially as no coders that can move very quickly, I think that's like an advantage, we should sort of lean into as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have anyone that you work with for any aspect of the company, or is it only you doing kind of wearing every hat at the moment?
At the moment, it's just me. Of course, I have like an accountant that does my accounts, for like, not for AudioPen, but like for all of my internet expenses. I had this TikTok agency that did marketing for me, but didn't work out. Um, yeah, it's back to being just me.
So something that I noticed kind of running companies on my own, now I'm starting to build a little bit more of a team with different contractors for different a variety of different tasks. But especially when I was working alone, I found it challenging to manage myself sometimes and figure out like what prioritizing, work, what are you going to work on. Is that something that you think about, or is there any strategies you have when you are managing yourself as a solo maker, um, that might be helpful for anyone listening?
I mean, one of the biggest things I do, so I do this part time, like AudioPen and all of this stuff online is not my full time gig. Like, I work during the day with my family business in a completely different parallel universe, of the offline world. So one of the rules that I sort of live by when it comes to building things online, which is something I learned the hard way, is that whatever I build has to be able to survive by itself, if I can't make time for it. So I
Mm.
design stuff very intentionally that none of the products I have require continuous maintenance. So if I disappear for 2 months, the product should still work, without requiring me to service a customer or whatever it may be. As of now, AudioPen is the only app that I have running live that has a requirement for customer support, which I still do manually, because I mean, I can, like, it's not, the volume's not crazy, um, and it feels nice to talk to customers, and keep that channel open. Um,
Hmm.
but I intentionally don't have a live chat on the website because I don't want people to think that I can respond, the moment they message me. I just have like a box which you can send a message in, and then I reply via email. So I batch that maybe 3 or 4 times a day, reply to whoever's emailed me, and that's about it. But besides that, um, nothing that my involvement isn't really required, on any aspect of anything that I build online, except for product improvements.
That's great. I mean, I think something else that I kind of am taking away from that is constraints can be really helpful because you kind of added this constraint around what you want to build to, okay, it needs to be something that isn't going to take up all my time. And as a result, you created AudioPen, which maybe you wouldn't have come up with that idea if you didn't have that constraint around it. So I think that's something um, that is something people should think about when they're building their, thinking about what business idea to create, and thinking about what kind of business they want to create.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, yeah, it depends on what your interests are as well, right? Like, if for instance, if you enjoy doing a particular task, like, you can create constraints around that, like, hey, I want to do stuff that's
Yeah.
like this and not like that. So yeah, I mean, the internet is internet and no code, and now AI as well, like, it just makes life so much simpler for all of us. It almost gives us
Right.
superpowers. If you just rewind, 5 years ago, none of this would be possible, like, not even close.
Yeah.
And I think we take that for granted very often, that it even is possible today, because I've been doing this for all the way since, like, say, 2015, 16, maybe. So what, 8 years? um, and like, I know what the tools were like back then. They were rubbish, compared to what they are right now. So yeah, I mean, more than happy to be messing around on the internet and seeing what works for me, and doing more of that.
Yeah, I feel like especially with AI now and all these different APIs you can connect to, there's never been a better time to gain the skills and learn how to build products, and whether it's with no code or code, but it's easier with no code obviously to get started, and um, it's an amazing time to be building products on the internet, definitely.
For sure, 100%.
So, what are your future goals with AudioPen or other products that you're building? Especially if since you're working with your family's business as well, is yeah, curious to learn more about your thought process there.
I actually don't have very specific goals for AudioPen. I think the product has now reached some level of stability, some level of sort of maturity. It's at its core. I think it's reached where I wanted it to be. There are a couple of product directions that I'm thinking about whether I want to take big risks and move it in a certain direction or not. But like nothing too crazy. Like I don't want to do anything out of the ordinary. Like it's working for me right now. I want to just keep improving it very gradually and sort of build one new feature after another. As the weeks go by, because I genuinely enjoy building this stuff. Like it's fun. Like I look forward to coming home after work and seeing, okay, I'm going to build this feature today. Let's try and figure it out. Um, so yeah, at the moment, I just want to do that for as long as I can, and we'll see what happens. I mean, I don't know if that's a wise way to do it, but so far it's worked.
Cool. I love that. I think that you have a really kind of wise outlook on this, and kind of a healthy outlook about it too, of kind of just enjoying what you're building. You're also setting yourself up for kind of success, like emotionally about it, right? You're not saying, oh, if it doesn't hit, uh, you know, 100,000 users in 5 years, then it's a failure type of thing. Like, it's already a success. Like, it's just going to keep being a success because you're just going to keep building it and improving on it. And I think also it's another kind of circling back to what we were talking about before, of being a kind of a benefit of being a solo founder is you you don't have to worry about, oh, I have 5 employees that I have to pay, and if it
Yep.
doesn't grow, then the company's gonna die. Like, it's already default alive, so
Yep.
it really can't fail. It can't die. The company's gonna survive because it's just you, and I think
Yeah.
that's a really great place to be with the
Yeah. I mean
business.
that's been quite intentional as well. Like it still feels like a hobby to me, like building this stuff on the side. And I'm very wary of the fact that if I switch to hiring people, while it might help, my growth rate and stuff, revenue numbers might go up. It might be good for the company. It might not be good for me because then it'll stop feeling like a hobby. It'll start feeling like a second job, and I don't want that. Like I really enjoy the hobby, and I want to keep it a hobby for as long as I can. Like I don't want to be one of those guys that enjoys playing his guitar in a room and then suddenly is forced to go out and play a gig every night, and he just doesn't have fun anymore because he's playing with a bunch of people that rely on him to play well. I want to be able to put down the guitar if I don't feel like playing for a week. So that's my approach with this stuff at the moment. And also I want the, like, if I put down the guitar, nothing should break. Like everything should still work. So all
Right.
none of my customers get disappointed because I've designed everything in a way where I don't need to be at the helm all the time. I can just do it when I feel like it and not do it when I don't feel like it, and everyone will still get what they paid for.
Right. Totally. And do you have any scaling concerns with Bubble or no code, or is it all working great for you? And it's for the foreseeable future should continue to work well for your use case.
Um, I don't know if I have scaling concerns. Maybe minor ones, nothing too crazy. I do wish they were better off with. They were better at creating native apps. Um, I know Bubble recently announced that they'll do that, and I think the timeline was 2024 at some point.
Yeah.
So I'm currently in a spot where I want to figure out, should I learn how to code and build a native app? Should I hire someone to build a native app, which is like something I really don't want to do, or should I just wait for Bubble to
Right.
build this stuff so I can build it myself with Bubble instead of learning how to code? So yeah, there are these like three paths that I've got to pick from, and I'm just postponing the decision for as long as I can. That's the only big concern I have. But other than that, I think so far Bubble's been all right. Yes, it's a little slow here and there, but I think I could optimize the app as well to make that feel better.
Yep. Yeah. Is in terms of the native app, have you explored? I'm curious because I've haven't done a ton of exploring into this yet, but I know there's a few like wrappers out there that help you turn your Bubble app into a native app today. Um, have you looked into any of
Yeah,
those, or are there reasons why they potentially don't work as well?
yeah. I mean, but I don't like them because I, they take the downsides of a web app and take it to the native world, but they don't take any of the upsides along. Like, I like the fact that AudioPen's a web app because you can just type a URL wherever you are and whatever device, use it just
Right.
like you could anywhere else. But of course, web apps do have downsides, right? Like there's no local storage. There's no easy way to say record your voice on AudioPen while putting your screen off. The moment the screen goes off, the browser loses access to a mic, which is a big downside for
Oh
an app
yeah.
like AudioPen. But all of these wrappers still have those downsides, and some of them have workarounds to kind of get rid of the downsides, but they're not very elegant workarounds. So, for instance, in the recording thing, there's one or two apps that can do it, where you can put your screen off and record. But at the same time, the UI then breaks. Like it just looks terrible. It looks like a different app.
Hmm.
So I don't want to commit to building a native app like that in this very haphazard fashion, because I don't want to put out a product into the world that just doesn't it doesn't live up to its existing version, right? Like I don't want a disappointing
Yeah.
version of AudioPen out. I'd rather not have one at all.
Yeah.
If it was maybe day one for the product, that would work, but it's not day one. Like the product's whatever old enough and has a dedicated user base already. So I think the option of building a native app from the ground up um, would probably be the right option. I just have to figure out how to do it.
Right. Yeah. It makes sense that you want to make sure that the native app uh, lives up to the expectations that users already have with the web app, and that it's
Yeah.
meets a quality standard. And the Bubble announcement that they're going to allow you to build native apps directly into the editor is super exciting. But of course we don't know how long that's going to take. It could take over a year, if not longer,
Yep.
for that to
Yep.
to really be available. Um,
Yep.
yeah, we're actually adding a Flutter Flow class soon to No Code MBA, which I know is one that seems to be pretty popular now for mobile apps. Um, I don't know if you've, but
I
I mean,
tried
no
playing
matter
with
what,
it, but
it's
I
a
think it's a bit of a learning curve. So I think I spent a few
yeah
hours with it, and then I was just like, I don't wanna do this. But
yeah
maybe I should give it another shot.
yeah. No, I mean, well, I mean, similar with me. I played around with it, and I'm actually working with an expert, Flutterflow expert, to create the course because I was like, this is going to be too much for me to learn and become an expert on Flutterflow to the ability to actually create a course on it, at least in any reasonable amount of time. But yeah, maybe the course will be potentially helpful to you or anyone listening, and
Yeah, why
if
not?
you're
I mean,
listening in the
let me know.
future
Let me know when
about
it's
it,
out.
yeah. Yeah, totally. Um, but yeah, but there's definitely more of a learning curve. I would imagine it's still significantly less than learning to code itself, but
Mhm.
it's more difficult, at least from the get go, I think, than Bubble, because Bubble integrates the database into their platform, whereas with Flutterflow you have to integrate with an external database. So I think there's like a little bit more complexity
Yeah,
there
yeah,
specifically. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, also with like the rate at which AI is advancing at this point, like, especially with these coding co-pilots and stuff. Like I've started to think about the idea of like, hey, instead of
Yeah.
learning how to code, why don't I just use AI to basically tell me what to do and do it. I haven't gotten to that point yet, but I'm thinking of running a few experiments maybe early next year. Where I mean, I don't try to build AudioPen from scratch, but like I build a couple of basic apps just to see if it's possible, and then expand from there. I don't see
Mm.
why not. Like, at the rate things are changing, and the rate, like, the stuff you see on Twitter, with the advances in AI, like, I don't think that'd be impossible very soon.
No, I love that as an experiment to just sit down and say, okay, I'm going to use GPT-4 to try and teach me how to create an app or just tell me what to do, essentially, and
Yeah,
just create a simple iOS app through that and see how far it can get. And I agree.
yeah,
I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be able to do it. At least a simple version of an
yeah,
app. Absolutely. Yeah. Or I mean, in the not too distant future, you might be able to just say, "Hey, build me an iOS app that has
yeah, yeah. Why
voice
not? I
recording
mean,
and
this stuff sounds crazy. Like, it sounds crazy, but it's not. Like, if you heard this a year ago or 2 years ago, it would sound way crazier, and it sounds way less crazy today. So, like, in another
yeah,
few months, it'll probably sound normal, which is ridiculous.
right, right. I just saw yesterday this new app that creates like really amazing looking video. You probably I think
Pika.
it's called Pika
Yeah,
or Pika. Yeah,
yeah. So I
that
saw it
was
on Twitter.
amazing.
Wild.
Did you see Stable Diffusion's the XL uh, turbo model, Stable Diffusion XL Turbo?
No,
So I just saw this yesterday. Basically, it's essentially real time text to image. So you type in whatever you do, but instead of having to wait like 10 seconds or 20 seconds for the image to be generated, it generates it in like 1 second. And
crazy.
it's like, it was pretty amazing. Yeah, it's
Have you seen
crazy.
the ones where people just draw apps on paper, with like arrows saying "do this, do this, do this," and the computer just bloody makes it, which is crazy. Oof.
Yeah, I saw that
Yeah.
as well. It's amazing. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting how those types of apps, how we go from that, which is like amazing proof of concept of like building these simple things and simple workflows, to I think that what's interesting to me and what I think about, and especially as building no code MBA, which is helping people build apps and how to do these things, is when will the AI be able to like take the next step of if you go taking things to the next level, because it's even with no code, right? Like it's relatively simple to build a just as an example, right? Like let's say you wanted to build something like AudioPen, which had a voice recorder that recorded it and outputted using AI like an output, right? That's People can do that relatively simply. They could learn to do that in a day, right? And
Yep.
kind of similar to how AI can, maybe in the not too distant future, you could just describe that
Just
and it could
yeah, you
build
just
a
accelerate.
prototype.
So, correct. Like,
Um,
no code. No code is basically an abstraction of code, right? And AI is taking that one step further, where it's
right.
like an abstraction of the
So,
effort you make to draw something. You just tell
so
it what to draw, and it draws it.
totally. But then going from that prototype to what you have with AudioPen now, which is like a really polished product, there's a lot of thoughtfulness put into, I'm sure, the way that you store data, you handle the database, people interact with it. Going to that level, I'm wondering when or if AI is going to be able to go take that next leap, right? Of being able to go from prototype to something like that. And that I'm more skeptical is going to happen soon, but who knows? There could be some breakthrough that happens in the next year that makes it seem possible. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, looking at the pace at which things are moving, I wouldn't very confidently say if. I think it's more a question of when.
right.
Just like the
Yeah,
most
yeah,
ridiculous shit is has become normal somehow on the internet, and it's wild. It's a little scary, but wild. Um, but yeah,
yeah,
I think there'll still always be. I hope there'll always be some sort of human element, um, to
yeah.
people building and building stuff on the internet, sharing stuff with others, paying for things where they see value, especially if it's created by another human. I don't know. It's difficult to say what's going to happen. Like, given that,
Yeah.
if you think of it, and this is maybe slightly pessimistic, um, the fact that AI can just create apps today based on a drawing, like, what's stopping it from potentially just running thousands of A/B tests tomorrow, on just random apps that it's created, to see what's useful, and then doubling down on it.
Hmm.
Basically, what I'm doing today, but at the speed of light. right? Like I build multiple apps, I see what works, and then I double down on that. What's stopping an AI from just building 1,000 or 1,000,000 apps, seeing what works and just doubling down on that and tripling down on that, and basically just building a form of, say, personalized apps for everyone.
Yeah.
We could reach a world where, hey, we don't need anyone to build anything for anyone. Like we just subservient to the AI. I don't know. I hope that world never comes to be. But it would be kind of sad for me because I enjoy building stuff. But I mean, who's to say the AI could do to us builders what DALL-E did to, say, painters or illustrators? You can just tell it, hey, draw a cartoon of this, and it'll do it. Depressing, but not impossible.
Yeah, I also hope that humans are a part of it and we can continue to build and enjoy building. And I think there will be an aspect of human creativity in that, and I hope it'll just be a tool to help more people build. But it's not impossible that more and more in the future that AI is just going to take over more of the role of building. But
I do think we'll find other things to do in the same space, though. Like, a simple example could be, say, going back to the time where a computer required, it was like MS-DOS. You had to like type in command line stuff to get it to do anything for you. And a few folks could do that. But then the graphical user interface came in, and then everyone could do that as well. It sort of democratized that process of figuring out what you want the computer to do or how to talk to the computer. But then you figure out other things that you need to do with the computer, and it just widens the possibility of things that people can do. So maybe something similar will happen in this space. Difficult to predict, but retrospectively it'll look obvious.
Yeah, it's an exciting space to watch because it's moving so quickly, and like every week essentially there's something new and exciting to check out. So it's definitely I think a fun space to be building in and to be a part of, and then knowing Bubble or no code tool to kind of interact with it as well is I think a really fun place to be in too.
Yeah, and I think before all of this happens, like it's more reason for people to just build, like build fast before the tsunami comes in, because it's a lot of fun to build. Even if sometimes you'll make money, sometimes you won't, but you'll always have fun, especially if you're a creative person in general. So yeah, I mean, build stuff. I think we have at least a year, maybe two, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, it was great speaking with you and learning more about AudioPen and just your thought process around building and no code and AI and all of that. So it's great having you on. Is there anything else you'd want to share, or anywhere people should go to follow you or check out AudioPen?
Yeah, I mean, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm just my full name, Luis Pereira. And AudioPen is audiopen.ai. Besides that, I mean, just general advice for anyone considering entering the no-code space. Like if you're a creative person, just do it. It's never been cheaper. It's never been faster to kind of throw a dart at the wall and see if it hits the target. And the advantage you have with no code is that you can throw many darts for very little money and very little time. And eventually you just get lucky because one of them will hit. So yeah, I mean, now's the best time that's ever been. The best, like as good a time as any to get into the arena and start throwing those darts.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thanks so much for coming on and really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Seth.
Thanks for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to build your own AI applications like the ones we discussed in this podcast, check out No Code MBA's Building Apps with AI course. It's perfect for people who don't have any coding experience at all and want to build AI applications without writing code. Use the code podcast10 for 10% off your membership, and go to nocode.mba to check out the Building Apps with AI course, as well as all of our other no-code education. I'll see you in the next podcast episode.